But surely you must understand that referring to your child as a situation with disability sounds horrendous. Oh my god, someone could be pausing a video game right now! Oh my god, I'm losing my shit over this. No! From Software could send an executive to you in the ass every Friday night as part of the difficulty of the game, and you guys would support it. Okay guys, so I've got some new drama for you, some new content that has been popping off. You may have seen this happening on social media. Very interesting situation. Very interesting situation. So the long and the short of it is a woman is getting heat on the internet. Surprise, surprise. Lots of incels out there at the moment. Am I right? Anyway, the thing that she's getting heat for is this short clip that has been bandied about on the internet. Okay? So let's listen to the clip and then we're going to have a look at the rest of it and see where we are. So this is Alana Pierce. Alana Pierce previously caught heat for participating in the drama around Creator Clash, and I think did a bit of sweeping for them, which resulted in them receiving some criticism.
Okay, that's wonderful. But how do I make money off depressed people?
Thank you for the super chat. Very true. Thank you. Okay. Let's get into this, okay? Let's have a little listen and see what's what.
Is consent.
Oh, bit quiet, sorry. A little bit quiet. Let's crank it up.
Is consent. There are long-term disabilities. There are situational disabilities. There are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. That is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability, a situation is concerned.
Okay. Now, whilst the clip is quite tight, it does sound like what she's saying is dumb. Okay? And also, my other thing here is, why you playing video games when you're trying to look after a child? Like, shouldn't you wait until the child is in bed? No? Right? I mean, like, obviously looking after a 2-year-old is pretty intensive. I don't know what her exact situation is. And I understand if she's like got full-time care of the kids or something like that. You know, I'm kind of like, I get that maybe there might be some things you want to do and it gets a bit dicey when you got a kid running around. I don't know, man. I don't know. If you've got a 2-year-old running around, shouldn't that be your focus? Yeah, there's been a lot of outrage over this. Yeah, also calling it a situational disability is retarded. And it's probably some woke shit they've come up with or something, right? In fact, I think there's a little infographic spreading around which looks kind of retarded. But sure, I mean, not being able to pause a game is like, why not? Right? I mean, I think you should be able to pause a game. People tell me in chat, and I've read elsewhere, that apparently you can pause at Elden Ring. There is a way to do it. You need to exit the game, and then you come back to the same point that you were at. And apparently the reason there's not a pause option in there is because what they don't want you to do is they don't want you to like be able to pause and think about your next move, or pause at an opportune time to prepare yourself to do a certain move set that's going to, you know, advantage you in that battle or something, right? So I think it's probably one of those situations. But then again, I think pausing is fine. I think having a pause option is good. If there's a way to do it, but it's a little bit imperfect, you got to leave the game, just put a pause option in there. What does it fucking matter? My guess on this is probably a very retardedly fucking worded statement, but the overall point she's making is probably fine. And people are probably overreacting a bit to it. But the fundamental aspect of what she's saying here is probably not that crazy. It's just worded in a very retarded way that comes across as woke, right? That's my guess. But let's have a listen to the full video and we'll see what's what, okay?
The day has finally come. The people have finally spoken. So listen up, Miyazaki. Elden Ring's DLC is too hard. I have like a couple of like kind of very...
I mean, I don't like to judge a book by its cover, but the video is called Elden Ring DLC is too hard. It's not. I mean, if she goes on to say it's not as hard as you make it out to be, I mean, then that's good. No, like that's what you want someone to say about it if you're a big Elden Ring person.
Different branching takes to make in this video. I am going to talk about accessibility and why I think accessibility is really important and how common of a conversation accessibility is where FromSoft games are concerned, and why I do think it would be great if disabled players could play Elden Ring, even though it is already currently their most accessible game. There's a lot of room for improvement. But we're also going to talk about
her disability's having a kid.
know where to start. There are a bunch of negative reviews on Steam for Elden Ring because Shadow of the Erdtree is considered too hard. I never thought we would get to a landscape where people will admit that they found a FromSoft game too hard. Like, even if people do, I never thought that they would admit it. Now, it's worth noting that the presence of this has been a little bit exaggerated.
I've got to be honest with you. I disagree with this disability thing, because I don't think everyone is entitled. I don't think it's not a human right that you get to experience something, you know, if you can't do it, right? Like, a disabled person potentially can't go fucking paragliding. Like, you wouldn't say, oh, they need to make that more accessible. Like, there's some experiences in life that are just not going to be available to you as a disabled person. And I presume, I mean, obviously there's lots of experiences you can have as a disabled person with a video game. And as long as that exists, why is it that specific video game that you should get to experience? You know? I just don't really buy that. And I just think, no. I don't think you're entitled to a gaming experience if the designers want it to be a specific hardness or difficulty, then that's up to them to do, and then it's not for everyone.
Okay, that's wonderful. But how do I make money off the
Hey, Podosaka!
The DLC blacked out, and hi, that's a real disability.
Thank you for the $5. Appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what she says. Let's hear her out.
A lot of the negative reviews on Steam are also people complaining about the performance problems, which are there, they are consistent. And that's a separate story that I've spoken about before that people did not want to hear, which is that, yeah, FromSoft really gets a pass for a lot of things sometimes. Like, the reviews were all 10 out of 10, even though most of these people are playing on PC, and there are PC performance problems with these games. Those are totally valid, and thankfully have been patched. So, though, has the difficulty. There are, like, two sides of this, right? Okay. There's a thing when people talk about FromSoft games that I always find really interesting. People will say, but it's part of the appeal that, like, your
situational disability is a term used in accessibility. Well, here's the thing.
Okay, that's wonderful.
There probably
But
is
how
some
do I
usage
make
of that
money
I think
off depressed people.
We need a general. A puddle likes to suck.
is fine. Thank you for the 333. But surely you must understand that referring to your child as a situational disability sounds fucking horrendous. And even if there's a valid point to be made there, you probably want to find better words, right? Because it sounds like you're saying having a child is a disability. And there's probably a better way that you could express that. Right?
fighting something really hard and then you finally overcome it. That's part of the appeal of the games. No.
You know, if you could just say, I don't know the fact there's not a pause button, because sometimes, you know, as part of my job, I play a game and my kid's there. Do you know what I mean? You can probably express it in that way, surely.
While there are things that FromSoft games do incredibly well, like I am obsessed with their boss designs and their animation. Like, for all the things we love about it, their bosses are...
But the basic point is reasonable, that a pause button is a must, because sometimes something happens that you don't expect that means you need to pause the game. Okay? I'd like it if there's a pause button because of that. Boom. There we go. Expressed easily and simply. Done. You know? Is that a crazy way of putting it? Is that not a reasonable way of putting it? Anyway, you guys are starting to fucking annoy me. All of you are annoying me because I've not even heard it yet. Let's see what she's got to say.
So impressive in terms of art direction and animation. They don't even need to be. Like, oh my god, they're just so good at that. The sense of discovery is unparalleled. The uniqueness of the world is near unparalleled. Like, there are a lot of things that FromSoft games do really well. But saying part of the appeal is beating the... But it's not part of the appeal. It's the entire design of the game. It's the whole game. It is the core ethos, the core game design of any FromSoft game, is that you are supposed to approach a boss.
Okay, but wait. You're saying do this. Why not just add a pause button? What is these arguments? Oh, you can do it like this. I've heard this. I said earlier, I've heard this argument, and you know, I get the mentality of it. But if you do that anyway, why not just add a pause button? I'd presume that adding a pause button is one of the easiest things that you can do in a game. I mean, every game's got one, unless it's an online fucking game, right? It's an online game. Wait, how so? It's not like, I mean, obviously you can't have a pause button for an online multiplayer match, right? You don't because of invasions. I've played games that have got those fucking dynamics and you switch it off and you can press pause. You can get random invasions. Well, I'm presuming there's a facility with which you can switch that off. I always switch that off because I don't want some fucking retard messing with my shit. I want to play by myself if I want to play by myself.
Game. You see messages from other players and can bring them into your world. You can be invaded by PvPers.
Right. So if that's on, of course you can't pause the game in that circumstance. But if you switch that facility off, you should be able to pause the game because then it's an offline game. Right? It's like saying, oh, Call of Duty is an online game. Yeah, but in the single player mode, there's maybe some co-op function in some of it. But if you're playing a single player, if you're playing zombies by yourself, you can fucking pause it. Right?
Be willing to die the first several...
I feel like we've reached the point of absurdity with some of this discourse where it's like, okay, the game's hard. I agree with you. If you asking to make the game easy when they've got a design philosophy of making the game hard is stupid. But saying there should be a pause button where it's possible, and people are like, no, get good casual. No, a pause button in an offline single player experience is totally reasonable.
Times, as you assess their moveset, you figure out the puzzle that is beating this boss. You've retained information about their movesets, about what kills you, about how you can avoid it, and you roll into them. And then after a certain amount of deaths, which are to be totally expected, if you beat an Elden Ring boss in less than like 3 deaths, in my opinion, that's an RNG fluke and not you playing the game well. The big part of the game is learning how that stuff works. That's the point. You go in there, you gather that data, and then you finally beat them. That is the point of these games. The whole point is for them to be extremely challenging. I do think that people complaining about the Shadow of Erdtree DLC should get good. By which I mean just pay attention to the things the game gives you that can make it way easier. That's not to say you're not allowed to complain, okay? We are also...
Dude! She's even criticizing the people that are saying, fuck it, dude. I saw one person... Do you know, it's funny, actually, in this discourse, I'll throw this in here because there's no other time I'm going to mention this. But I saw, you know, some of these, like, righty gamers... I can't remember who it was now, but one of them was complaining about the difficulty. And I was like, how are you any different to the other people who complain about the difficulty? I thought it was like, get good, scrub. Do you know what I mean? Like, bro, you're exactly the same. Go and play something else if you don't like it. Right? I mean, that's the point of the game. It's supposed to be fucking super difficult. Yeah, I saw Asmongold was moaning about it too. It was too hard. Bro, yeah, that's what everyone has been saying. Is it's too hard for my disabled hands. Shut up and get good, retard. And then when you are struggling, oh, it's really hard, actually. I don't know what Asmongold's position was on it, whether he was more reasonable to those people, but you know, I've definitely seen people who, it seems pretty obvious to me that they would normally have an issue with that sort of mentality.
Really weird. I'm already tangenting inside my tangent. We are really weird about acting like FromSoft games can't be criticized. They are immune to criticism. Like, you are allowed to complain about finding it too hard or feeling like a certain boss isn't balanced or feeling like a hitbox is... Like, you can complain about those things and be valid. Stop acting like any criticism of a FromSoft game makes you a fake gamer. First tangent completed. I apologize. Back to the video.
Oh, sides
course correcting. Patch dropped for the DLC. Meaning that this to me would indicate that FromSoft... Gonna lean over a little... kind of agrees with the criticisms, which is pretty nuts. Miyazaki did say that he wanted Shadow of the Erdtree to be the hardest thing they ever made, and it seems like that worked very well. People are finding it extremely difficult, even people who have been a long-time FromSoft fan. That was the intention. I mean, it would have been crazy to let you just like finish Elden Ring and then just continue as though you were still playing Elden Ring. Like, they did have to up the difficulty for the DLC to even justify its own existence, in my opinion. But basically, attack and damage negation curve scaling of the Shadow Realm blessings have been revised. The attack and damage negation has been increased for the first half of the maximum amount of blessing enhancements, and the second half will now be more gradual. The attack and damage negation granted by the final level of blessing enhancements has been slightly increased. So again, I take this to mean that they like kind of agree, and they were like, oh, we maybe did make this too hard. Okay, how bad? Which is super interesting. But there are things about this that...
Old man Jenkins, let's not forget this bitch lied about Creator Clash to profit herself. You are a sides-cucked retard. I mentioned it earlier, just to give a reference point to who she is. But that's not going to change my interpretation of what she's saying now. Why would it? What's that got to do with the price of fish, okay? I'm interested in a take on this, because everyone's been fucking moaning about it. right? And I'm like, okay, but what is she actually saying here? Is what she's saying that egregious? Is it just a clumsily worded statement using retarded terminology that people are not going to like? Which seems what it is most likely. In this video, she seems to be pretty reasonable. You're giving ground to all sides. I don't know. I don't know if she's said anything that is cancelable or not cancelable. But that's a bit gay. But you know what I mean? It's like, is it really that insane what she's saying? She's asking for a pause button in a retarded way. Oh, call the fucking press. Stop the presses, for fuck's sake.
Oh my god, I have so many
Anyway, let's
opinions.
see. Maybe I'll...
This video's going to turn out so messy. First, Shadow of the Erdtree tells you what you need to do to get good. And I think really, it just requires patience. You may be familiar with scatter tree fragments. I'll keep this quick in case you literally are familiar. But basically, this is effectively a means of an accessibility feature that exists inside of Shadow of the Erdtree because it is optional, and I love that they've done this. So, Scattertree Fragment is a new upgrade material in Elden Ring, debuting in the Shadow of Erdtree DLC. Scattertree Fragments are optional consumables that can be used to enhance simultaneously offensive and defensive capabilities at any sites of grace, acting like a permanent boost to your DLC damage dealt and damage negation. Basically, you go find these things, they will make you stronger in the game. If you are having trouble with a certain boss, you literally just have to go find these things. They are made solely for the DLC, they only work in the DLC, they do not work in the base game. They are there specifically for players who are having trouble with any bosses that are already there, which is totally...
She's a woman. If she said the sky is blue, then I must simply disagree. I mean, that's funny. But no, I don't care about any of that. I just want to know, is this criticism of her and her position reasonable, or is it an overreaction to a clumsily worded statement with some woke language in? Like, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
You're allowed to have trouble with Elden Ring. You're allowed to find it hard. But they have been put in the game to give you that option. I love that they make this stuff optional. That it's like, yes, you have to go through effort to be able to do this. And in theory, you need to look up a walkthrough to find the locations of them. But I love that it's like a thing that is available to all players who are having trouble. Leave the boss. Coolest thing about Elden Ring in general, for again, where accessibility is concerned, when new players from some games are concerned, is that you can just leave at any time. Go find these. The DLC will become easier for you. That is, they put it in there for you, and I just feel like maybe a lot of people have missed it. Which I guess is like part of also the design of Elden Ring, right? Is like, From Software games don't ever explain anything to you. But yeah, I'm finding this stuff very funny. These games are hard. We should be allowed to criticize things we don't like about them. They're not immune to criticism. I do feel like Shadow of the Erdtree literally has told you the thing that you can do to make it easier. But at the same time, them patching it would imply to me that they're also like, maybe a bit much, which is funny. I'm not telling you to get good. I'm telling you to use all of the features available to you to cater your experience, which is the...
Everything being framed as accessibility is stupid. Yeah, like, it doesn't need to... You can just, like, you can just make the point. Sometimes there's things in life, and there's a knock at the door, right? My fucking kid is sleeping and wakes up, right? I don't know, something like that. There we go. There's the point made. Why does it have to always be about the fucking... I need to be careful what I say here. Why does it always have to be about the fucking... It's like it's the bed blob. It's like Gamer Discourse Bed Blob Edition. Who is the most wretched, horrendous person that we can think of, and how can we make the game best for them? Oh my god, dude.
The coolest thing about accessibility in general, it is time to talk about the incredibly cool Virtual Pro XR glasses. If you haven't heard me talk about them before, it's so cool. And there are so many ways to play. There's a neckband for remote gaming on PlayStation.
It's a technical term in video game development. If you want to communicate your ideas, you should probably avoid using technical terminology that makes it sound like you having a kid as a disability. Just a tip. Just a tip if you don't want controversy, okay? Just a little tip for communication in the future, all right?
PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. There's a mobile accessory to make sure you can play your Switch on the go without it needing to be docked. You can plug it into your mobile phone, and yet it's all just right from your face. The Virtual Pro XR glasses have a 135-inch, 120Hz Full HD private screen with a peak brightness of 4,000 nits.
Cool.
Using ultra clarity technology, they have edge-to-edge clarity, making even small text readable on the glasses display, plus anti-glare, anti-ghost, and...
They need to make the summit of Mount Everest more accessible to 400-pound black trans women. Oh my god, dude.
And anti-motion sickness. And they are the only XR glasses with myopia adjustments on the latest Sony Micro OLED panel with ultra clarity. The new Pro XR glasses also upgraded the lenses so there is no more image leakage, meaning your privacy will be fully protected in public. Basically, you get to make personalized adjustments to make sure you have the sharpest image. So not only are these like incredibly cool and fun and great...
Dude, I've got to be honest with you. This like lack of... this like lack of pause being a part of the gameplay dynamic is retarded, okay? There's lots of things that would be inconvenient that would make the game more difficult, okay? Yeah, sometimes the game randomly crashes after you've been playing for 30 minutes. Oh, can we make it so the game doesn't crash after 30 minutes? Sorry, that's actually part of the experience to demonstrate that sometimes when you've got a certain place, it's not necessarily guaranteed, okay? That's part of the gameplay experience, okay? Dude, come on! Just put a pause button in there. If it's online, mate, obviously you can't do it. But if you've got an offline experience, I think it's totally fair that you would say, yeah, put a fucking pause button in, right?
For planes. On top of that, there is some fantastic built-in stereo audio and a bunch of really helpful modes and extra uses like co-op, meaning you and your best friend can be sitting next to each other on a flight, both wearing these glasses, both playing Mario Kart with giant...
It's very clear from just watching this video so far that lots of people are overreacting because of a short clip of us saying something that sounds retarded, but our overall point is fine. That's the gist that I'm getting from this. And some of you are so sides-cucked, you refuse to admit, okay, I got a bit taken in by a clip, but actually the broader point she's making seems fine, okay? But then again, I haven't seen what she says. Let's get to it and find out. But the fact that she's starting off this video by giving so much, you know, criticism of the people complaining about it being hard, I don't know, man.
Screens that nobody else can see. The glasses are also super lightweight. It's a really comfortable, really slim design. So make sure you grab your Viture Pro dock pack and use my code Alana to get 10% off everything but the new glasses. Go to pro.viture.com/Alana and use code Alana. Thanks Viture for sponsoring this video. Now back to the video. I have never understood why players would ever argue against more customization options. So this is the second half of this video where I'm going to talk specifically about accessibility and even just a lot of people really not understanding the conversation about accessibility in Elden Ring. It has been brought up various times across various mediums by various people that Elden Ring is not,
Danger zone.
FromSoft games in general are not particularly accessible to disabled players. When people are asking for accessibility, I'm not actually asking for an easy mode. That isn't the intent. Here's the thing I want to spell out where accessibility is concerned. People who are disabled, I felt myself doing it, I'm going to do it, is another tangent. There are also multiple kinds of disabilities, especially where gaming is concerned. There are long-term disabilities, there are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid.
See, I just don't understand. This is such a retarded way of framing it, right? And it feels like it's trying to inject her technical knowledge about this topic into the conversation. Whereas if she'd have just expressed this in a more, I don't know what the right term is, like a sort of, you know, better, more communicative way, a way that doesn't involve this technical insight of like, what are these different types of disabilities? It comes across like she's trying to sound smart, right? In plain language, yes, exactly. Rather than get into your technical knowledge of this. Well, yeah, this is my point. I've seen this floating around. I've seen this floating around. Yeah. This is the thing I've seen floating around, okay? So this is Microsoft's design toolkit for inclusivity, right? So you've got different types of disability. Like, yeah, this is trying to explain. This is like, you sound like a fucking robot explaining this rather than just being a human being in terms of how you're talking about it, right? You see what I mean? There's a better way to communicate these ideas. So, yeah. Distracted driver, bartender, heavy accent. Laryngitis. You're very angry. I mean, if you're angry about this, that's stupid. This is nothing to be angry about. It's just dumb Twitter shit.
Okay, that's wonderful. But how do I make money off depressed people?
Crow and Mew in Discord are so mean, won't even share their milkshakes. Aussie Lass in the vid, however, is not a good person. I know people personally that call her toxic ass.
Thank you for the 420. So, yeah, I mean, if she'd have explained this in a way that didn't involve looking at a fucking chart to understand what she's talking about, it would probably gone down better. Her overall point is fine. The delivery shit. There we go. Simple. End of drama. Anyway,
you have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. That is a situation kinds of disabilities, especially where gaming is concerned. There are long-term disabilities, there are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. That is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability, a situational disability. You may need to pause to stop your kid from putting a fork into a socket, a power outlet. In Australia, we call power outlets PowerPoints.
See, why, like, Why call that a disability? That's an insane thing to do, and it makes you sound horrendous. Whereas you could have made the point in another way by saying, for example, well, you see, sometimes you're playing video games because your kid is asleep, and then your kid wakes up and you need to see to them, right? And it might be they go back to sleep. And obviously, it's totally reasonable that you play a video game if your kid's literally fucking asleep. So it might be that you just want to temporarily pause the game and you can't do that, right? I think that would have been a much better framing.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Rather than
But how
acting
do I
like you're
make money
disregarding your
off
kid and
depressed
consider them a
people?
disability. I mean, that's what it comes across like. Hey, Tizzy. Thank you for the bits. I would say happy 4th of July, but you live in a dead husk of freedom land. Happy 4th to all the Amerimuts who enjoy work Britbong and enjoy work Britbongers. Thank you, Tizzy, for the bits. So, again, I think that my take on this is correct, okay? In that she made a good point in a retarded way, okay? And I feel like people are kind of overreacting to this because the fundamental point she's getting at is fine. It's just she's expressed it in a very technical way that to most people is going to come across like you're calling you having a kid as a disability, when it seems like she is referring to this, you know, mentality that clearly is in the gaming industry, where you have different considerations, I guess, of like people's different state and how you might need to accommodate for that in a gaming experience or something, right? So, yeah.
But when I moved to the US, I got bullied for that because people thought that I was referring to like a PowerPoint slideshow. So trying to get that one out of my vocab. And there are temporary disabilities. You break your wrist, you sprain your wrist, you temporarily have trouble playing video games. You would need something to help you press certain buttons if you're playing Elden Ring. The third one, long-term, people who have long-term disabilities. That I do. I have tendonitis in both of my wrists from playing.
Actual good faith framing would be you want to pause. FromSoft has deliberately decided to not give you that option. Either play with that in mind or play something else. No! What is this take, dude? It's a fucking pause button! Every game since I used to pause my game on the fucking Master System years ago. This is a retarded take, dude. Bro, what do you mean? It's so fucking easy to add. If it's an online thing, obviously you can't do that. So that's just shit out of luck. But if you're specifically playing the offline version, you're turning the online features off, you should be able to pause the fucking game. It's a totally brain dead take. You're just taking the spoon feeding of these fucking Asian developers that are telling, oh, we can't add a pause button so it make it too easy, I'm afraid. Get good. Bro. Dying on Pause Hill. It's just so stupid to me.
Too many video games, unironically, that is a thing, from tapping too much. That means any rapid button mashing in any game, I'm going to have a lot of trouble with unless there are accessibility options to prevent that. It's part of what I worked on God of War Ragnarok. That's part of why I made an accessibility award show to like highlight this particular thing. Is like I have a lot of trouble with fighting games. I have a lot of trouble with any game that's really button mashy. If there are too many button prompts, I'm going to be in pain and have to like ice my wrist afterwards and not really be able to play it. And here's the thing about accessibility in Elden Ring, where any of those things are concerned. I think there's a misunderstanding that people think disabled gamers, whoever else, want an easy mode. This is not the case. It's that the appeal of Elden Ring being really fucking hard is also appealing to people with disabilities. They too want to play the extremely hard game that is very hard for them to beat. They're not asking you to give them an easy mode and make it easy for them to get through. They're asking for a version of the game that can be played with their particular disabilities, so they can still enjoy really hard games as well. The complications with this conversation...
Yeah, I feel like the other side of this, they've taken the... Like, it's totally fair. I would agree if it's like, you know... I would agree with you if it's just make the game easy. Put an easy mode in there. And developers like, no, we're not going to do that because the point of the game is that it's difficult, right? If it's too hard for you to do,
okay, that's wonderful.
Then
But
don't
how
play the
do I
game.
make
I totally
money
agree with you
off
there.
depressed people?
Okay?
If you do not understand why this is the way it is, that's fine, then it's not made for you. Let people who do understand have their thing.
But the thing is, thank you for the $5. I agree with that in terms of adding an easy mode. But we're talking about adding basic features to a game, which most people are going to need. Well, people are going to, at some point, maybe need to take advantage of, like being able to pause the game, right? Easy mode is retarded, pause button isn't. You've taken the arguments from all the points about easy mode and using it for just basic fucking features in a game now, and you're retarded, okay?
Conversation arise, I think, with Elden Ring specifically. Like, yeah, there are so many people who just dismiss it as like
She is stupid. If you go into the map and go to the legend, it pauses the game. Well, does that not undermine all the points people are making about a pause button not being in there? No? Well, if it's possible to do that, why not just add a fucking pause button then, if it's that easy?
Shut up, who cares about you, you're disabled, which, you know, fuck off. Second, people just assuming they're asking for easy mode, and that's not the case. It's not an easy, it's not even less difficulty, it's more options. But third is the unique challenge with FromSoft games of completing them being such a point of pride. They intentionally make these games difficult. Like I already said, this is an established ethos of these games. They are
because it can be what? Pause. Pause can be abused. Oh my God. Okay, but the thing is that I don't understand about it is just you don't use it then. You don't use it, right? It's a pause button, dude. I'm not coping. You guys have fucking gone insane over this. You're arguing against having a pause button in a game because you're worried that someone else is going to abuse it. Dude, you're fucking lost the plot, dude. Literally sat there. Oh my God, someone could be pausing a video game right now. Oh my fucking God, I'm losing my shit over this. No! Dude, it's crazy.
Intentionally very difficult. Elden Ring is the broadest, the most open. You can use summons if you want to. If you want it to be harder, you don't have to. You can approach it with as much or as little assistance as you want, and you have still completed the game. Controversial, I know, but yes, if you use summons, you've still finished the game. I don't care how you play it. Do whatever you want.
I've already said, retard. Obviously, if it's if you're playing multiplayer, that's like with zombies. You can play zombies in multiplayer, okay? Obviously, if you're playing zombies in multiplayer, you can't pause the fucking game. But if you're playing single player on your console only, you should be able to pause that. Of course, if it's online, and you've not switched the online features off, then yeah, you can't pause it because you're playing in the online version of the game, the online arena. Bro. Okay, one example. I played, what is it, Sniper Elite 5, I think it is. Okay? And there's a version of the game that you can play where someone can join your game at any point and fuck with you. Right? Obviously, if you're playing with that mode switched on, you shouldn't be able to pause it if someone's joined your game because that wouldn't work. But if you're playing the single player version of the game offline version, you should be able to pause it. Absolutely.
But it's also just that whole culture of beating a FromSoft game is such a point of pride for people. And how do you avoid taking away that point of pride? That is one-to-one with that design ethos. It is making you feel a sense of accomplishment for overcoming something very difficult. It's a feeling humans love. You get a sense of accomplishment. You feel like you did something of value. Humans love that. And Elden Ring's like that in video games on crack. Like, if I feel a sense of accomplishment every time I get an achievement because I collected 50 Who's or Whatsits, it is like triple when I beat a boss in a FromSoft game. There are bosses in Sekiro where I beat them and I like threw my hands up in the air and screamed. There are so few other games that have that effect. And that's a feeling that I do think everybody should be able to have catered to their own accessibility needs. Here's my pitch, okay?
Dude, you guys literally have lost the plot with this From Software stuff. You've gone insane. You're literally freaking out about a fucking pause button. The idea of a pause button getting proposed. Listen, I completely agree the framing of this is totally retarded. And she should have said this in a different fashion if she didn't want the smoke. Right? But to act like it's so insane to say it would be better if there's a pause button in the game. Pause abuse. You guys have fucking lost it, man. I'm telling you.
Hear me out, the internet. Here's my pitch for fixing the problems surrounding Elden Ring or FromSoft games in general being so, like just the discourse being so hotly contested. Like it's...
Oh my God. No! You people are fucking insane! You fundamentally don't understand the point of why a pause button wasn't put in a game. Yeah, we got this new feature in this game, and your inventory randomly gets wiped out halfway through it, and you can't pick up the items again. Good luck. Right. Literally receiving psychic damage every time someone presses the fucking pause button.
Like, I've been making fun of people this week for saying that if you played with someone, you didn't finish the game, that you cheated, even though it's a mechanic that's right there. It's literally intentionally there. It would be like saying you didn't beat Shadow of the Erdtree because you used the scatter tree fragments. It's nonsense. They're in the Miyazaki put them in the game. It's cool that we can adopt them or not adopt them based on how we want to experience the thing or the unique challenges that we have because we're all fucking different people, right? Here's my pitch. Okay, gamers, hear me out. I haven't had this conversation with anyone, so I don't know how many holes there are, but this is my thought. What if, for every game that you finish, but especially for FromSoft games, there were an ending title screen that you could screenshot and you could share very easily that details exactly how you finish the game. Are people going to reply to each other who share that and be toxic about it? Yeah, people are going to be like, you summons, you died, and be summons every to give me how much. Yeah, people are going to be dicks. But I feel like it would maybe prevent some of the extra accessibility specific gatekeeping. Like all of these people who are vehemently against.
Okay, the game already has a pause. It's just a bit of a pain to activate. So everyone complaining about wanting to add a pause already have it. Why not just add a fucking pause button then? If it's possible to do it by some fashion, why not just fucking add the pause button then? That's also an argument for just having one in there.
Except
From Software could send an executive to fuck you in the ass every Friday night as part of the difficulty of the game, and you guys would fucking support it. You'd bend over and spread your fucking cheeks willingly and be like, well, that's just part of the experience.
accessibility options, which is really, again, just in-game customization options. No one's asking for less or more damage, but like less button presses or there's a large list of things that can make it easier for disabled players to play a really hard game and still have it feel really hard, but still be able to play it, you know? But what if you get just a screen at the end with the credits that shows exactly how you played it or what options you had on or off? In my head, this would alleviate a lot of that discourse. People are saying like no accessibility whatsoever because I want to be able to play Elden Ring the exact way that I want to be able to play it. And I feel like those people are shooting themselves in the foot because what if they get one of those temporary, situational, or short-term disabilities? You break your wrist, you're not going to be able to play Elden Ring. You have a kid, suddenly you can't play Elden Ring. Like,
yeah,
I feel like
the biggest mistake is framing it all around this accessibility conversation, I think. Oh, thank you. Weasley Little I Do with a $10 super sticker. Hippo falling over onto something with the big sticker wrecked appearing above it. Oh my good lord. I'm sorry, Weasley Little I missed that. Thank you very much. Thank you for the wreck sticker. Appreciate it.
they say it when they don't have disabilities, but in 10 years, when you do have some kind of disability, I feel like you're going to retroactively kind of regret that you were like, absolutely not, don't change anything. I finished Tunic. That game rules and is very hard. And after I finished it, I beat the final boss that you don't even have to, well, spoilers. She was so hard. She was so hard. It took me days. Tunic has an accessibility option in it that you can use to, it's basically God mode. I think you can prevent all damage. I beat the game without that and felt so accomplished and so proud of myself. And I mean,
like, yeah, she's obviously just trying to bridge the gap of the discourse, right? Of the people that are over asking for shit in terms of like asking for an easy mode, which is stupid. You know, the game is intended to be difficult. I mean, some games do have it, and that's great. Like what's it called? They call it story mode, right? And it's like you could just play without really experiencing. Some games, I think, even turn off the combat completely. So you literally just play through it for the experience of the game. Game journo mode. You know, and that's great if they want to do that, but that has got to be a decision that they make. You know,
okay,
and
that's wonderful. But how do I make money off depressed people?
She is encouraging pause Pelucio. It just invites people to leave their screens and systems on for extended periods of time.
More pollution, okay, extra 365. I mean, if From Software are like insistent they're not going to do it, and there's some fucking gay reason they've come up with.
But how do I make money off depressed people?
This is From Software. You know what to do, chud lol.
Thank you for the $10, Decade. I'm obviously not going to lose any sleep over it because I don't really play From Software games. It's just so funny to me that people are reacting so negatively, and I get acting negatively to the retarded way she's expressing it. The fundamental point of the pause button is fine.
Are so mean. All they do is gloat about ice cream, and it makes me as the real issue affecting men.
They were the 333. People are like, fuck it, you guys are like in a fucking rage about this pause button thing. You're making me angry. But no, I just don't think it's like if someone's like, oh, I think it would be good if they added a pause button. I feel like you guys should get really upset by that and talk about them getting good.
Off depressed people.
Chud would love
I just don't. It's like, really?
The final
pause
boss
button.
has a
So
dog.
what? Thank you very much for the $5, Radar Hughes. Appreciate it. Yeah, there's like it's like From Software religion. You guys have got like this weird fucking quasi-religious view of it, you know? Like Catholics that whip themselves when they've done something wrong. Because you're missing... I'm not missing the point! I know what the point is! Oh, we don't want to add the pause button because it might allow people to pause scum. That's essentially what you're saying, okay? I get the point. It's retarded. I'm saying that your point is retarded, okay? I'm saying you're in a cult. You're in a retard cult of FromSoft.
Care that that mode is there, or that option is there to help other people who still want to experience the game without that. I think that's perfectly fine. But I would have liked just a little something at the end, even an achievement, to give me the credit for doing the hardest fights on what is effectively the hardest in-game possible difficulty because I didn't have those accessibility options on. You know what I mean? That's my thought, basically. Elden Ring is already the most accessible FromSoft game. If you're complaining about Shadow of the Erdtree being too hard, you don't have to play it. You are definitely allowed to criticize them. And I also think you should explore more because you will find another build or another means to make things easier. Like, I think you're being impatient is probably what's happening realistically. This is for people who obviously don't have accessibility problems. But what if, so that we could actually allow disabled players to play these games, which is a thing I care about, the end of the game, you just get a screen with all your stats. How many times you died, what options you did or did not have on. So people can still brag and still show off, because again, that is clearly a thing people like doing with these games. I just feel like it would solve a lot of this conversation. It's really not about asking.
She should uninstall the game. Why? Why you guys are acting like she's like, no, they need to add a game journo easy mode and you can't die and you can just walk through the game. Yes, as I've said repeatedly, she's expressed it in a very retarded fashion, okay? But I do not think what she's saying is that insane to reach that level with it. You know? Like, you guys are overreacting to a fucking clip on Twitter. That seems to be what's going on here. Ninja Gaiden. That had a pause button, didn't it? I completed that, I think.
Miyazaki, FromSoft, to make the game easier where accessibility is concerned. It's about allowing more people to play it. And sometimes people just need different settings to be able to do that. More customization to be able to do that. Does it make sense? I feel like it makes sense. Basically, yeah, I'm just so surprised that we're in a timeline where literally enough people are complaining about it. Like, all of the games journalists gave it a 10 out of 10, but the Steam reviews, the gamers are the ones that are saying it's just too damn hard. For any of those people who do not have accessibility specific issues, you just got to explore more, dude. You can do it. You can do it. I think you're being impatient. I think you can do it. And to the accessibility conversation that comes up every single time FromSoft has a new game, I would love to see them have more accessibility options. I would not like to see them make the games easier or less challenging. And it's a difficult balance to strike, obviously, but I feel like I found kind of a solution. Let me know what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, she's trying to bridge the gap and she's just used the most retarded language
Okay,
to
that's
do it.
wonderful.
Right, stupid.
But how
That
do
is-
I make money
Other than that,
off depressed people?
I mean,
Speaking of games,
I think there should be a
finally
pause
got
button
my PC back
for
after
unexpected
3 weeks
things.
of no games. I am a happy man.
Hey,
Today,
Ollie! Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Watch more from her. No! I think she's fucking retarded most of the time. I think she's a fucking dumb broad. Her take over the Creators Clash thing, I remember being fucking dog shit. But it doesn't really change the fact that, although she's asking retardedly, fundamentally saying, oh, I think it would be good if they added a pause button, and maybe there was a way of recognizing at the end when you've really achieved something further. I mean, and it's just funny seeing people in chat freak out at me so much over it. And the idea of just adding a pause button causes you to fucking go insane. You're getting caused psychic damage by the idea that someone's pausing the game. You fucking lost the plot. Jesus. No, Chud. You don't understand, actually. Not having a pause button is integral to the gameplay experience. Shut the fuck up, retards. Jesus. Fuck me. As if adding a pause button is going to really undermine the game. You've got FromSoft cult fucking retardation. Okay. See, this is the problem with the way, like, it's so stupid. Oh, dude, look at this. God, the smug approach. Clearly you need to educate yourself on a very much standard accessibility term. No! No, you don't! Why would you call it, why would you have the word or concept of disability in the same mindset as having a kid? It looks terrible. That's the message that people are going to take away from it. Having a kid can be a situational disability. It's not my side, retard! It's not my fucking side! It's not my side! It's not my fucking side at all! How is it my side? I've said repeatedly it's a retarded way to talk about it. God, you're so sides-cocked, it's unbelievable! Fuck me. Dude. It literally isn't. This is not my side. I've got no side. I've got no dog in the race. My take on this is the same as it was at the start, having looked at it all. She expressed something in a really retarded fashion. This is all stupid. But the fundamental point she's getting at is fine. And people are acting like the retardation on top. They're getting mad at that, but getting mad at all of it. And I just think you're being retarded. The pause button's fine. Only Tories are using... Okay, come on now. Let's not get political now, all right? Then move on. No, you leave. Fuck off. Stop watching me. Shut the fuck up.
Okay, that's wonderful. But how do I make money off depressed people?
Chud experiencing psychic damage from a simple chat message.
True.
Sad.
Thank you for the $5. Chud, you're getting too mad. Just pause the mad real quick. Okay. Anyway, having a kid can be a situational disability where accessibility is concerned. If you need to pause a game because your kid is running around in the living room but you can't, you'll have trouble playing games without a pause menu. See, this is a really stupid example as well, because it makes it sound like you're neglecting your child when you say it like this, you know? It's like, it sounds like you're neglecting your kids to play a video game. Why not fucking say it as in a kid sleeping, or I don't know, some other unexpected situation arises? It sounds like you're saying, I've got to look after my kid, and that's a disability. Just the worst way of wording it and framing it. Every few days, I wonder why I try to teach anyone anything on the internet. See, look, this smug tone as well. Like, she's obviously like, dude. Of course, people are going to be angry at you if this is the way that you're approaching it, right? Not offering any sort of concession or any fucking, you know, if you were to say, appreciate that's a bad way of wording it, and it sounds like I think my kid's a disability. Obviously, I don't think like that. Here's what I was trying to get across, right? Boom. There we go. You could probably make the medicine go down a bit smoother. But the fact that she's, you know, kind of doubling down here and acting smug about it is terrible. Of course, you're going to get more hate for this kind of response, you know? Every few days, I wonder why I try and teach anyone anything on the internet, but yes, in software and game development, situational disability is a term that refers to any non-permanent situation that will prevent someone from progressing. Accessibility aims to alleviate that. And then, yeah, I've seen this bandied about a lot. We looked at that a moment ago. This thing. I mean... She probably, yeah, I don't know. Maybe she does know. Maybe she's just baiting more anger with her response from the incels. But yeah. This is an interesting, wide technical term. I just think that in communication, right, like it's so obvious to me, like I was saying earlier about this person, it seems like she's trying to impart knowledge to sound smart about it, right? And it's like, just take a step back from that and think about communicating your ideas in a way that make it clearer. Okay? Listen, if you wanna make it go down a bit smoother for you, think of it like this, okay, woman? Incels are dumb. And you gotta dumb it down for the incel gamers out there. Maybe that might make you want to do it a bit more. But when it comes to technical language and stuff, okay, right? Yes, absolutely. That is exactly what she's trying to do. She's trying to impart something she's knowledgeable about in a smug way, and people don't like it. It's very obvious from the way that she's talking here that that's what's going on here, right? Yeah, you don't use technical jargon when not addressing people in your field. You sound retarded, above it all, and foolish. Yes, exactly. Exactly that. The way that you communicate is different if you're speaking to people like this versus if you're having a conversation with a fellow
that's wonderful.
expert in your field or whatever, right?
Off depressed people.
Puddlesucker was soy cupped for a reason. Lad in chat RN talking like an authority. Good times.
Also not Bricard. Thank you for the 333. Like, multiple things can be true in this situation, okay? As far as I'm concerned. The FromSoft cultist retards are moving from what is a reasonable position, an argument, to game developers shouldn't have to be at an easy mode just for the sake of placating certain gamers, you know, particularly ones in a wheelchair. Okay? I agree with you. But it's just taken it to an extreme where anything that From Software does, they'll justify or defend to the ends of the earth, even if there's a reasonable criticism in there somewhere, right? Like, you can think, okay, I understand why From Software are doing this, but you can also surely see how someone, put aside all the disability stuff, okay? All the disability combo and shit, all the trappings of that. If someone were to say, I would like it if they had a pause button because sometimes it's annoying if someone comes to the door, right? That's like, okay, yeah, I can understand that. Even if you disagree, you can at least understand where they're coming from, right? But that's not what the From Software cultists are doing, right? They're freaking the fuck out. I mean, even at me, when I'm saying I think it's kind of stupid that you care so much about a pause button, it's not that big a deal, right? We're not starting the fight again. I'm trying to explain it. I'm trying to tone it down for the incel retards in my audience, okay? So that's that part of it, okay? Now, further to that, I totally understand. I agree. This person has expressed it in a, very stupid way. And the more that I look into it, the more that it comes across to me like she is trying to smugly impart knowledge in a way that, it's like when you speak to someone and they're clearly knowledgeable about something and they speak in a way that's a bit confusing to you as a layman. And then when you query it or question it, you act kind of smug and obnoxious about it rather than just fucking laying out what you're trying to say in layman's terms, Like, and I think that's fucking stupid. Teach anyone anything on the internet. Who asked you to teach anyone? Communicate your ideas simply, okay? And if you don't like the fact that people are reacting badly to you, then don't use terminology that's confusing.
Okay, that's wonderful. But how do I make money off depressed people?
Edward Nigma became a member.
Thanks for the membership.
Edward Nigma celebrates 1 month of membership. Let us have our autistic aversion to pausing Daddy Chud. Sad face.
Thank you for the membership. You can have that. I just, of course, you can have that. Good luck. Good luck to you. But acting like it's a totally unreasonable criticism to say it's not got a pause button is ridiculous when pause buttons are prevalent throughout games and act as a easy method with which to attend to an urgent task that you are not aware there's going to come up, right? Anyway, so there we go, okay? Fair point of the pause button, retarded way of expressing it. She's clearly very fucking smug in trying to educate people about this topic, using technical language where simple language would work better and cause less confusion. That's the take, okay? That's the take. Boom. Easy peasy. Now, she did release another video, so I'm interested to see what this looks like.
Allow me to explain. Hello, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Alana, and I work 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at a AAA game studio. I am a writer on the design team, but I also work as an accessibility consultant, and I've done that on 7 separate games so far. I'm credited as an accessibility consultant on God of War Ragnarok because that is the most work that I did on that game was in the accessibility space, and I also created my own award show called the Video Game Accessibility Awards.
Oh my god, dude. Straight away, with all of this fucking gubbins. Bro, what response is she expecting if this is her reaction to this? It just comes across as so cringe and so like,
We've run that for 2 years. I took a break last year because God of War Ragnarok came out, and it would be very weird to have an award show the same year as the game that you worked on accessibility, even though I don't vote on it. It's voted on by a full panel of disabled gamers. But it's a thing that I care a lot about and know a lot about, more than most people, though there are certainly people who like full-time do accessibility in the space who would know way more.
I know more about than most people. Have a bit of fucking humility, okay? Like, what you said, like, I don't want to do the as a parent thing, but like the idea that you would refer to having to look after a 2-year-old child as a disability in any form, right? And then the example you would use is they're running around suggesting some sort of like neglect occurring, bro. It's fucking crazy. And then look, some people were freaking out excessively. Others, I'm sure, were just calling out how insane it sounded. And this is the response. Fucking hell, dude.
More than I do. But earlier in the week, I made a video that I called Elden Ring is Too Hard, in quotations. And majority of that video, I think it's like the first 8 minutes, I'm just basically talking about the negative reviews that Elden Ring has gotten for being too hard and saying that I disagree with them. Majority of that video is me saying, no, I think that you should get good. Like, I did literally say get good in it. The second part of that video, I wanted to talk about something that I'm just going to give with more detail now, about accessibility design and why when people talk about being against a game being accessible, I think it's really silly because accessibility is so much broader than just a guy in a wheelchair, which is what most people seem to think of when they think about accessible design. But when it actually comes to that design, it is much, much, much broader than that and will definitely apply to you at some situation in your life. So in this video, I was talking about that. I was saying when people ask for accessibility in games, they aren't asking for an easy mode because they also just want to experience the hard game. They're not trying to get it to just be easier. And I was saying, accessibility design is so much bigger than people think it is. An example I used, and to be clear, I wasn't even advocating for this. I didn't say that I think it should be there. It was just an example. An example I gave let me just show you the clip first. Let me show you the full clip. When people are asking for accessibility, are not actually asking for an easy mode. That isn't the intent. There are also multiple kinds of disabilities, especially where gaming is concerned. There are long-term disabilities, there are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play
Wait.
Elden Ring, you can't pause.
I should have guessed really, but she's not a mother. I thought that she was making a self-referential
that's wonderful.
situation.
But how do I make money off depressed people?
So
No,
she's
I'm not neglecting my children. Don't be ableist, bro.
Hey, thank you for the $5. Right. Okay. I get it now. Okay, so she is having a retarded... Right. I thought she was making some sort of self-referential thing. Because I was thinking, as a parent, right? I was thinking, like, why would you be letting your 2-year-old run around while you're playing a video game? It's fine. Like, obviously, you watch TV or something. If, like, having a little kid, sometimes they sleep. And when they sleep, that's your time to have, fun and watch TV or do something like that. Right, okay. So, she is talking about parenting in a way that is describing a potential experience, not her own experience. But she's not a parent, so she doesn't understand how retarded that sounds either. Okay, got it.
That is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability, a situational disability. You may need to pause to stop your kid from putting a fork into a socket. So I basically explained 3 pillars of disability as it pertains to design. I did not invent this term. This term has been around for a long time. There are variations of the term.
God forbid that she uses correct terminology because of virtue signaling into someone like you. I literally can't win. I literally cannot win with this fucking conversation. Now I've got fucking retards coming in, accusing me of being too hard on her. Bro, I can't win. You cannot win. Nuance is dead. Pick a side. Pick a side, and that's it. End of conversation. Fuck me, dude.
Term, and it's multiple facets of design. This is used in web design, it is used in app design, it is used in software design, and it is used in game design or development design.
Stop calling it my own side. I do not fucking associate with these. I don't fucking like this woman. This woman is a stupid fucking bitch. Okay, I don't know much what you want me to say, but I'm not going to let that govern what I think about the words that she says. I'm going to judge it by its own fucking assessment.
Development either really works. As it turns out, actually even broader than that. I've learned this week from people contacting me about it that situational disability is also considered in...
Yes, it is bad communication to use technical language, and then when people are confused by your use of technical language to double down, act smug, and act like they need to educate you. That is bad communication. Okay? Simple. Does that make me an incel for saying that?
Like commercial buildings. Apparently, it's not even just app development. It is much bigger than that. And there are 3 pillars of design. There is permanent, which is the thing that I think most people think of when they think of the word disabled. Person who has one arm, somebody who is blind. Let me pull this up, literally just give you a direct example. This is from Microsoft Design Toolkit, and I'm sourcing them because they are the company that most of you will know the name of or be familiar with, but you can find examples of this all over the place in this space. So we have permanent on this side, which is, for example, someone has a permanent disability, someone with one arm, someone who's blind, someone who's deaf, or someone who's nonverbal. Then there are temporary disabilities, which is like if you broke your arm, you broke your wrist, you have an ear infection. Then there are situational disabilities. This is example that's used here is new parent, a driver who is distracted, a bartender. I can explain the bartender one because people are confused about that as well, and a heavy accent. People are also reacting to the heavy accent one. So let me explain what the situational disabilities mean here. Maybe
Also, just the other thing as well, taking into account this document, the example of the 2-year-old child is actually, she's being very smug about that aspect of it, but that isn't a situational disability. Like, it seems quite obvious to me, the situational disability is the idea that you're a new parent, and therefore, at times you're going to have to be carrying your child, and it's going to make it difficult, in comparison to having one arm or an arm injury, right? Basically, the situational disability is you pick up your child, and you essentially are giving up the use of one of your arms, but you have to do that in order to comfort your child, right? So the 2-year-old running around wasn't actually that good an example of like a situation with disability. It seems like it's more so, you know, you were because of a specific situation, putting yourself in a circumstance where you're giving up something of your body, right?
An app can't understand your voice because you have a heavy accent. That is considered a situational disability. You are disabled, you are unable, you cannot proceed through whatever software or whatever task you are trying to complete because of something that is situational to you. And it is situational also to the context of that.
If you pick something up, you become disabled. Well, the thing is that when you're talking about like picking something up, right? A child is something that you need to pick up, and it's very difficult to put it back down unless certain circumstances are met, right? Yeah, sure. The language is stupid. You know, the language and calling it a disability is the technical terminology that I just don't think is particularly helpful. But the basic point that I'm making here is that even within her own context of what she's saying, it seems like she's wrong to call the 2-year-old running around a situation of disability, bearing in mind the fact that it seems to be more so, you know, you're put in a situation where you have to hold a child for a particular amount of time, giving up usage of your arm for that period of time, right? It's soy corpo language, yeah, sure. And then it gives people, it's kind of like, it's a bit like the media literacy thing, right? It's a bit like a media literacy thing. It's people smugly talking down to you because you don't understand something, which is, you know, soy. I don't know.
Game. Like the situational here means having a heavy accent is not considered a disability in layman's terms. You would not be called disabled all over the world. None of these things are like, if you have a heavy accent, you're disabled. It's not that. It's just a situational disability in terms of design is that you are disabled from using the interface in a way that a user should be able to because of your situational disability. That's
also in terms of like new parent, right? I'm like, okay, so a new parent, I mean, some of these are like distracted driver. I mean, when is someone driving going to be playing a fucking video game? It comes across like Microsoft just want you to consume at all angles. You're driving, we need to find a way to help them play video games. New parent, how can we get a game going with one hand? Someone's working at the bar, how can we get them to play? Do you know what I mean? That's probably not what it is. But it's just like, bro, obviously in some of these circumstances, a video game is going to be the least of your fucking concerns, right? Microsoft don't only make games. Yeah, but the whole conversation we're having is about a video game, an entertainment product, right? If the conversation was about the use of a computer for something important whilst you're holding your child or having one arm, I mean, yeah, that's a fair conversation to have. But we're contextualizing this in the perspective of a video game, which is an optional entertainment product, right? So that's why the pause button is fine, because there are some things that take you by surprise when you're playing a video game that it's reasonable to have. But when it comes to like being able to play a video game as a new parent, I mean, that's a completely unnecessary thing, right? Yeah, but you're talking about, okay, you fucking retard, but she and others have introduced this in the context of talking about a video game. So, of course, I'm thinking about it in those terms. That's how it's being introduced. We're not having a conversation about using a computer to send an email that's important when you're temporarily disabled. Thank you for the 333. Fuck me.
The bartender example.
Obviously, when you broaden it out and you talk about an important thing that you need to do with the product, even if you've got one arm or you're a new parent or something like that, it totally recontextualizes it. And it's like, yeah, a new parent might need to do something on a computer. So Microsoft putting in a facility to allow one-handed use of some feature is more reasonable. But when it comes to talking about a video game, as a new parent, that's the last thing you're going to be thinking of is, oh, how can I get in my Call of Duty session whilst I'm cuddling my kid, you know?
Here is referring to a really loud environment. So if you are somewhere loud, they could also use music festival, but they're just using someone who functionally regularly works in a certain environment. So if they're in a loud environment and they can't hear a particular thing on whatever app, whatever interface that they're trying to use, the accessible design would aim to alleviate that situational disability. It's not saying bartenders are disabled in the way that the public associates the term disabled. I feel like distracted driver is pretty obvious. The new parent one, the example that I used, which again is fairly commonly used, I didn't invent the term, it's been around for a really long time, is if you're a parent, you're trying to play a game like Elden Ring and you are halfway through your boss fight and your kid runs across the floor and does something dangerous dangerous, you have to drop the controller and go and get them. That would be considered a situational disability, in that situation you are unable to complete the task that you are trying to complete because of something that happened to you situationally. You have been disabled.
Yeah, I get the feeling that this document is more about like app interfaces and actual important stuff that you need to use in a day-to-day activity or something, right? And it's being pigeonholed in to an example of a video game, which isn't the same. Like playing a video game is an optional entertainment experience that you wouldn't be thinking about if you're looking after a child in that fashion, you know?
Disabled from completing the task. The way this pertains to accessibility isn't to say that all games, all apps, all processes need to alleviate all of these things. That's not the intent either. Like, it's just a way in which...
Yeah, exactly. Like, who cares about Elden Ring if your kid has fallen off? Exactly. Which is why having a better example to argue as to why a pause button might be needed is better.
Design is much broader than people...
No, I'm not apologizing to you at all. No, it's not happening. You didn't say that. You said something more retarded, okay?
People think it is, in the ways that it can help a lot more people than people think it can. And it's also definitely a reality in accessibility where it is basically impossible, I would argue, to fulfill every accessibility need on the planet. That is very, very, very difficult to do. There are so many of them. The situational ones are so numerous. But it's just a means of looking at design that would allow the people who are doing the accessibility design to think about it as broadly as possible, think of as many situations as possible in which somebody is disabled from completing the task. Somebody is unable to complete the task. Somebody is hindered from completing whatever task they are trying to, whatever function they are trying to complete, and whatever software they are engaging with. I think the word disability is probably really common used in the tech space because we use disabled a lot. Like a function was disabled, this feature has been disabled, Bluetooth has been disabled, it is no longer able to work, not because it's been turned off or it doesn't exist, it has just been disabled. I think that's probably why it's widely used and not considered to be offensive when it comes to design. And there are also, I've definitely seen people say having kids isn't a disability, it's just a responsibility, go do something else. And that's totally valid. Yes, that can make you a shitty parent. The intention is not to allow parents to be shitty parents. The intention is to allow them to not be punished or have a negative...
I mean, that's fair that she's saying that now, but like, she is terrible at communicating her ideas, okay? That is the most fundamental issue in all of this. And she reacts smugly when called out for it, right? Like, if you're now saying, oh yeah, it's not about being a bad parent, like, you should have thought of that before you released your fucking pre-edited video where you said the words, a situational disability, I'm paraphrasing it, is where you got a 2-year-old running around. I completely understood her. I wrestle weebs, you work in fucking this shit, don't you? Don't you work in, like, app shit? Like, that's the point. You're not a layman in this situation, but lots of other people are.
Okay,
and so
wonderful.
you can feel very
But how
smug
do I
about
make
understanding it,
money
acting like this
off
fucking
depressed
dumb
people?
bitch.
So
Okay,
would you
great.
consider re-uploading your reaction to Kendrick Drake's situation somewhere? Lol, I missed it, then it was deleted presumably from C&D.
Thank you for the $5. Probably not, no. I don't know where it is. Isn't it on a VOD somewhere? In any case, it's not going to be uploaded as a VOD, I'm afraid, but it should be available on an unlisted VOD, but I don't know where.
consequence in your product because of something like that where possible. And like a very good example of, I think, people misunderstanding it as a design ethos and not a thing you have to do is I've seen people say, oh, what, so I'm disabled if I can't pause in a multiplayer game when I need to? No one would ever argue to take away from the design of the game. So like if that is the purpose of the game, is an online multiplayer experience where you are having interactions with people in real time and that is the core of the game, no one is going to argue that the game fundamentals should ever change. That's not what people are asking for. No one's going to say you need to have a pause menu in an online game. Like that obviously is functionally impossible. It is just about thinking about the most accessible options for the thing that you are making without changing design principles. You would never change design principles. You would still want your core game to function exactly as is. The Last of Us Part 2, again, I think is the most accessible game ever made. They clearly created exactly what they intended to create and then added all the accessibility features to make it an extremely accessible game. And the purpose of sheets like this and information like this, again, is not to say that like your game's not going to be, no one is going to be furious if it doesn't hit every pillar. It's just that there are a lot of pillars. A lot of this comes, of course, from people who actually care about gamers who have disabilities. I am one of those. It started in a very selfish way. I mentioned.
Yeah, the smugness is fucking insufferable. If she wanted to tone down the controversy, she's gone about it in the worst possible way by releasing this video where she, it's very pretentious. Like, obviously, if you've got some internal design document from Microsoft, which seems to be more about, non-gaming stuff than playing Elden Ring, obviously people are going to fucking have a problem with it. And then the response like this, dude, this is, she's dog shit at communicating, 100%.
mentioned it in the video, but I have tendonitis in both my wrists. This means that I can't rapidly button mash. I've had that for like...
Yeah, smug and terrible at communication is a terrible combination, you know? And I feel like there's people, I mean, fucking iWrestleWeaves just did it, right? Came in and was like, well, I understood it. Yeah, you do coding and shit. You probably have got some knowledge of this fucking topic, right? But a lot of people don't. And yeah, communicating so a layman can understand is a very important part of doing this sort of thing, right?
Maybe 10 years now. And so I have trouble playing any game that just requires, like, if you have a QT, I will always change to press and hold in the accessibility menu rather than tapping, because I will eventually, like, my wrist will lock up and I won't be able to do it. That's how I got involved in accessibility. And technically that is considered a permanent disability. I do not call myself disabled because I have that. Like, in general terms, I'm not going to say I'm disabled, but I've actually had people who most people would identify as disabled in the accessibility space criticize me for that. Like, I've had criticism that's basically, Alana, you are disabled, and by being afraid to use that word, you are preventing other people from realizing that they also have disabilities. That's a whole thing. But technically, that is considered a permanent disability in so far as it is permanent, it's not going away, and I have trouble playing video games, and so I need accessibility features. That's how I got involved in the space. Now, as I was saying, a lot of this obviously comes from people who have disabilities, who care about disabilities, who actually genuinely care. But I'm also sure that a lot of this comes from the app development and the web development, where they just want to make sure that you will never turn off the thing. Part of it is surely corporate...
Hey!
Depressed people.
If the next FromSoft game doesn't have a trinket called the pause button that has either zero or menial function, I will be disappointed.
Parallax, thanks for the 510 bits.
How do I make money?
Barjo, thanks for the 420.
Mate, stop giving this misandrist light. She is the pinnacle of an Australian misandrist, and she should never be taken. Hope she dies alone with 40 cats that eat her face.
Thanks for the 420. I was just looking for stuff to cover and this popped up. It's been quite a fun segment, even though it's just kind of culture war slop, really. I've enjoyed it.
Being very time hungry. We call it the time wars here on this channel, or I've spoken many times about right now being in an era where corporations just want as much of your time as possible. So I don't doubt that some of this, when it comes to higher ups, is also coming from the time wars, where, you know, the corporation wants to make sure that you don't have a situational disability that prevents you from engaging with their software, that makes their software frustrating, that makes you want to put down their software in any capacity. It is definitely mostly people who care, in my experience. I don't think I've ever met any of those people, but I don't doubt, like, that the term probably came from web development or app development, where they were just trying to make sure that you wouldn't have some situation that would disable you from completing the task on their website that they want you to stay on. Now, if people are upset or offended by the term disability or disabled here, I don't think you're ever wrong to be upset by a word or offended by a word, if that's how you feel, and that is how you feel.
Also, the framing of it is so irritating too, because it's like acting like people are upset or offended by it. Okay, like the word disabled. I don't think people are necessarily, I mean, to be honest with you, it's the soys that are going to be more upset with the word disabled being used, right? But to me, I think that some of the frustration that people had was the fact that you framed it as a disability to have to look after a kid. Right? And that obviously to some people is going to be like, what the fuck? I mean, that one post was from that person was like, I just heard a game dev referring, like, that's what people are taking away from it. And it's because you've used this technical knowledge and just not clearly and straightforwardly expressed what you're trying to say. Or even used a better example than a kid running around and you're trying to play a game. Oh. I guess there are a lot of soys in chat today. I mean, I think there's a lot of people in chat. I mean, at different points, I feel like people have been bothered by what I've said. Some FromSoft cultists that don't want a pause button added. Other people that think this woman did nothing wrong, which I think is wrong. I think she did do very bad communication, and the doubling down doesn't help either. No. You're framing it as people being upset by it by talking about people crying. God, that is so annoying when the soys act like you're the one that's upset about the word disabled, when the most noise you get about anything to do with fucking ableism comes from the fucking soys. I don't care that she called parents disabled. It's funny. But asking for a pause button, unacceptable, never forgiven, and showed you to be wrong.
You feel this has been this way for a long time. It is used in the space all the time. It is used by...
Well, there's some of it. It's going to be just mocking you. It's mocking the person because well, there's different levels to it. Some people are mocking it because they're taking it at face value, right? You are saying that parents are disabled. Ha, you're a retard, okay? And then beyond that, there's a level where it's like, I don't know, like you're very smugly trying to explain technical shit, and it makes you look. There's levels to it, right? Of course, I'm sure there's some people that are genuinely seething just about the word disabled being used. But I think some of it is just mockery and taking the piss out of her, you know? And some of it is overreacting. There's lots of different groups of people on the internet.
Permanently, visibly disabled people on a regular basis in the accessibility space, but language changes according to societal preferences all the time. So if people were to, just be learning about this term.
Shud, I am still trapped in the dark place. Why have you abandoned me? I wrote you into my story for a reason and now you won't even finish my DLC? I must refine the story.
That's crazy, Dono. Alan Wake, I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. You're right. I do need to get back to it. I will. I started another game, in fact. Don't Wake the Deep or whatever it is. Okay, I can't today because I need to do this fucking election stream, and I'm probably gonna stream a bit less tomorrow because I'm staying up late tonight. But I will swing back round to it. Okay, we will get there.
This week, which it seems like is the case for a lot of people, and are really offended by the use of disabled or disability in this context. I'm not against changing it. I'm an accessibility consultant, but I'm not on the kind of boards where they make these terms or make these docs. I've just helped on games specifically with the permanent disability side, not the situational disability side. But if you're upset about the term, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong to...
Wait, hang on a sec. So she is... Dude. Oh my god, yes! So she doesn't know much about it. She's trying to act smug about it, but she's not that well educated. And did use a bad example in the 2-year-old running around thing. That clearly isn't what is being gotten at by the situational disability thing.
Feel that way. If it made you uncomfortable to hear that kids are considered a situational disability. Again, it's not that kids are, though. It's that the context of which the child appears and does something disables you from completing a task. Whatever. Semantics. But if you would like to change the term, and if people would be more comfortable if when I speak about this again in the future, which I'm sure I will, I have many times before, that I call it a situational impairment instead, I'm totally fine to do that. It's just a term. Disabled exists in this context because of the industry from which it was born, but I'm not against it being changed.
Bro, all of that to say at the end, yeah, I probably should use a different term. Yes, exactly. Correct. Communicate your ideas better. Communicate it more clearly and specifically. And don't act so smug. When you get some fair criticism. Listen, some people are definitely overreacting, okay? The fucking Grums of the world, I'm sure, are fucking making hay while the sun shines on this. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was bad communication. Yeah. Yeah, situational inconvenience. Or just, I don't know, like, just, I mean, there's a much more human way to describe it, right? And you could use a better example too. But yeah. There we go. They are Sweet Baby Inc. and I mean, you know, I don't think this is, I mean, anyone that is claiming this is like wokeify, I don't know, dude, that's it, far-fetched to me. Look here, look, listen. That was a fun segment though. Oh man, I need to talk about From Software games more because people get so annoyed about it. It's very funny. I think they should add a mode where there's no enemies and you just walk through the landscape and can enjoy all the visuals that they prepared for you. I think that would be good. That's what I'm going to go for. I actually, I played a bit of, is it Demon Souls? No, Dark Souls 2. And obviously it was quite early game. I didn't really experience like, oh, this is really hard. It was just like, I didn't really get into it. And then I tried Demon Souls and had the same experience where I couldn't really get into it. What should I play? If I was going to go play a FromSoft game, what one would you recommend? I feel like maybe I should give it a go. Elden Ring, is that the one? Can you play it with mouse and keyboard? Yeah, everyone's been playing it.
Okay, that's
I'm
wonderful.
feeling a bit old for
but
it
how
now.
do I make money off depressed people?
Hey, thanks for the $2. There's Ladyboys if it meets your fancy. Wait, what? Oh. Okay. Right, what else have we got? One sec. Okay, guys, I found that I've got some trans stuff, but I think I'm going to save that for tomorrow. We're going to get into the trans shit tomorrow, okay? But what we will do is there's a new scammer payback accusation that's dropped, and I just skimmed through it a bit, and it looked quite funny. So I think that might be fun to talk about. Yeah, we got the Brad Tay stuff for tomorrow. No Gok today. No Gok today. And then, I mean, it's going to be getting to the point where, yeah, I think it's going to be time to be getting to the UK election. I'm actually super fucking excited about the UK election stuff later. It's going to be good. Listen, I think it is probably what we think it's going to be. So I'm just going to try and have some fun with it. It's kind of boring in a way if it is what I think it's going to be. Anyway, guys, listen. Let me just say, okay? I got angry at some value chatters there. It's all in good fun, okay? No hard feelings. No hard feelings.